three things that go wrong with one cell, but that's not a problem. You have 100 trillion cells. Remember, 100 trillion is like 100,000 Olympic-sized swimming pools. You're not going to notice when a cell dies. But when a second cell dies, and a third cell dies, and a fourth cell dies, eventually you get these clumps of death. And what the body will do with these clumps of death is it will surround the clumps of death with a wall to keep the clumps of death, sequestered. Clumps of death release acids and toxins, and they have to be sequestered. And this sequestering process is called inflammation. And so what happens is you get these pockets of microscopic inflammation that are designed to protect the rest of the body from these pockets of death. And if it happens once or twice, that's not a big deal. But under chronic energy deprivation conditions, because of chronic starvation, suffocation, detoxification, eventually you get lots of these pockets of death. And when you start to get lots of these pockets of death, they prevent nutrients from getting through, because the pockets of death are like walls. And so nutrients don't get through, and oxygen doesn't get through, toxicity doesn't get out. So you get more pockets of death. And this process is the beginnings of the disease process, and it occurs very, very early in our lives. For some of us, it occurs at birth. And so by the time we're 20 or 30 or 40, we've got lots of these pockets of death and lots of these micro-inflammatory areas of micro-inflammation. So more pockets of death. And then we hit the age of 28, we hit the age of 30, we start to show up with our deterioration. And we don't realize that the whole thing has been happening all along. We think we're sitting there minding our own business, and all of a sudden, oh, I got arthritis, and I wasn't doing anything. I was just watching TV. And all of a sudden, I got fibromyalgia. How do you like that? I had nothing to do with it, because we don't perceive all of the breakdown that's been occurring until we got to that point. So to answer your